Please give Justice Taylor a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Well, I've got to tell you that this is a pretty big deal for a country judge from McAllister to be appearing before the Oklahoma County Bar Association. Folks back home, take some pictures of this because folks back home in the Pittsburgh County Bar will want to see this taking place. Today, as I have been thinking about the preparation of this speech today, things changed just last week. And I changed some of the comments that I will make based upon local events in the news. And I want to focus today and begin my remarks by holding up all that is good about our system of justice, the very core of our national beliefs, and the basis of the rule of law. And that is the equality of people. And that includes women, African Americans, and all minorities in our community. I am tired of generalizations to the contrary. There are a few things I detest. I don't use the word hate, but there are a few things that I detest. But I detest intolerance. I detest racism. I detest hateful and ugly words that are meant to hurt and divide people, that foster stereotyping and division for political gain. And I'm tired of it. And I know this may be an idealistic view, but on this subject I can be patient. And I have faith that one day we will all see what Martin Luther King saw from the mountaintop, a promised land, and I'm holding out for that day. And I refuse to give up on my belief in the goodness and the equality of people. And I ask all good people today, this room full of good people, to never condone intolerance and hateful words. There seems to be no other way, and still have hope. The events last night that the President of the United States announced also caused me to change for just a moment what I had intended to remark today, and that is, we heard the news last night that bin Laden had been killed. Justice comes in many forms, and bin Laden got his. But I want to tell you on that subject that this Marine prays for peace every day. And this Marine is tired of war. And I hope that some way, somehow, we can all find and see that this is a very small world upon which we live. And again, from that mountaintop, we should continue to pray for peace. Now, moving to the theme today for the Law Day in the United States of America, we all have read and see that it celebrates our profession and sometimes the courage that is required of our profession, and lifts up John Adams, who defended the British soldiers charged with murdering colonists. There's an Oklahoma experience centered on the same subject. It required a year of my life. I was a small player in observing lawyers and our system of justice doing what lawyers are trained to do. The year that I spent with the Oklahoma City bombing case of Terry Nichols. We began that case in the district court arraignment in the basement of the Oklahoma County Jail. And I promised Terry Nichols that morning, when we held that very first district court arraignment, I promised him he would have a fair trial, or he would have no trial at all. And I meant that. I meant it with every fiber of my being. And I convinced the prosecutors and the defense counsel that I meant it. And I commend today the prosecutors in that case, and all of you know them. They were professionals of courage. They had a massive piece of work to do, the investigation and prosecuting a 161-count murder case. I commend the defense lawyers. John Adams was representing an unpopular cause and unpopular clients. Well, the defense lawyers of Terry Nichols were representing probably the most unpopular person in Oklahoma, probably in the world. And those defense lawyers were champions of our profession. And I lift them up today for the job that they did and the work that they did. It is a work of art, just as beautiful as any sculpture or painting in a museum, to see a lawyer do his or her work. But I particularly today want to say thanks to the citizens, the 12 citizens in Pittsburgh County who were ultimately selected for that jury, because they're the ones that really carried out the mission of a fair trial. They upheld the oath that they took to give Mr. Nichols a fair trial and have the verdict be based upon the law and evidence presented in the courtroom, not the news stories, the gossip, the tales, but what took place in the courtroom. And their verdict demonstrated that they were fair. And there was no appeal in that case. And the jurors were the real heroes, the citizens that heard that case. And in the end, as you all recall, the motivation for that crime was a hate for our government by McVeigh and Nichols. And on the day that I sentenced Terry Nichols, I looked him square in the eye and I said to him, Mr. Nichols, it is ironic that the very government that you hated so much was the government that was strong enough and big enough and good enough to give you a fair trial. That's the crowning glory of what we celebrate here today, the rule of law. And looking back, we remember history, and we should always remember history. Every great document in our glorious history, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Emancipation Proclamation, every great document in our history was the dream and the writing and the words of a lawyer. Every advance in social justice, a lawyer was there. Every advance in human rights was the work of a lawyer. Every advance in civil rights was crafted and led by lawyers. Every good thing that's happened in this nation, somewhere, some way, a lawyer had a hand in it. The law profession that we all celebrate today is, as I said, a thing of beauty. I also ask that each of you remember our profession and your personal reputation for integrity and honesty. It is the rock upon which every successful legal career is built. Lose it, and you will never recover. It takes a life to build and a moment to lose. I also ask, as I'm asking you to remember, I ask that you remember your clients. Those people who come to you with the important business in their life. Remember that there are no unimportant clients and no unimportant cases. For you, you often stand in a courtroom in what you consider to be a routine case. Routine divorce, routine felony case, routine civil case. Remember that that client who is standing next to you, this may well be the most important day in their life. And never forget that. They have come to you to be their voice. Oftentimes they have no voice. They need an advocate. And they're asking you to lift them up and bring them through the gauntlet of what we sometimes consider to be the routine system of justice. It is not routine for that person standing next to you. The issues that we deal with every day are more than hypotheticals because they deal I can handle anything. But I'm glad that stopped because I didn't know exactly how I was going to get through with accompanying music. I ask all of you to never turn your head away from injustice and never stop believing that you can make a difference because you truly can. It all comes down to courage. Our jobs require courage. John Wayne defined courage as being scared to death, but saddling up anyway. Thomas Paine defined it as fear that said its prayers. Lawyers must be courageous and stand tall, have your voice heard because that person standing next to you oftentimes doesn't have a voice. We must be courageous, willing to defend causes and clients, willing to tell clients what they probably don't want to hear, courage to speak for those that we represent, and use your profession as a tool for justice. And I ask all of us today to commit, and this is a big request, I ask all of us today to commit to love justice more than you love victory, and to remember the traditions of service, and to remember the delicate balance between innovation and the tradition that is central to the rule of law. I'm going to close by circling back to my original theme. The strength and intelligence of women and minorities. Any public statement that would suggest or imply that women or minorities are dumb or lazy should be met by all good people with a resounding negative chorus. And in celebrating that, I want to lift up a woman who was fearless, hardworking, courageous, and intelligent, Harriet Tubman. She was black. As you all know from history, Harriet Tubman risked her life to establish what became known as the Underground Railroad, a way to assist escaping slaves to make their way to freedom in the North. And Harriet Tubman would meet with these escaping slaves to encourage them, and she would give them this advice. If you hear the dogs barking, keep going. If you hear them shouting after you, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. Don't ever stop. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. And I borrow her words today, that in celebrating the rule of law and in celebrating all that we do in our work, that we commit to these principles and that we all keep going.